All right, so I've been coding all week, but the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins are going to meet in the Eastern Conference semifinals. This has been decided because the Canadiens swept the Lightning and the Bruins took care of the Red Wings in 5 games. They won 4-1 today. It was a clinic. Zdeno Chara scored, Lucic scored, Louis Eriksson scored, Jerome McGinley scored an empty net goal. The Bruins put on a clinic and exiled the Detroit Red Wings from Lord Stanley. They slayed the Red Wing bird, the Grand Rapids Griffin. The Bruins took out the Red Wings, and Zdeno Chara went Charizard on the Red Wings. That was a pun, I try to think of a spontaneous pun like Chris Berman, but I don't want to force it, because that's what all these sports center anchors do. They force the pun, and it gets old, and it dies, but I just thought of that. Charizard. And it's like, you could say it like a hockey announcer, but you'd have to do it with a serious voice, and it's like, you're not that playful, Chris. Just be professional about it. But it's like, it's a good pun, but you're not the kind of person that can just drop those playful innuendos in it, and it gels, it looks like. So, Charizard, Zdeno Chara, that's his new nickname, Charizard, based on the Pokemon Charizard. Charizard is scored the goal. He continues to be the reinforcer of the Bruins, and Lucic, Iginla, and the boys, they took care of business against the Detroit Red Wings. And it's not just the fact that the Bruins have the defense and the goaltending. Like, these guys came together as a team today, and they displayed the offensive skills that you look for in a Stanley Cup champion. And they've got the momentum, and they're still ticked off about losing the Blackhawks last year. And I definitely think they're the favorite to get by the Eastern Conference now, based on how they handled the series against the Detroit Red Wings so effectively. And I think the fact that Montreal they swept Tampa Bay so quickly, they have a bit of a layoff, that's going to work against them, because Cal Pope said that Montreal would sweep Detroit. No, correction. He said Boston would sweep Detroit, and Montreal would win in 6 games, and then the Canadiens would get the momentum. And I think the fact that Boston did that instead of the Red Wings, and they beat the Red Wings at home when they had Henrik Zetterberg back at full health and Pavel Datsyuk back at full health, like the whole team was back at full health for the first time, and they still kicked the Red Wings to the curb. They took Detroit to the cleaners. It's like the Bruins, they're the enforcers of the Eastern Conference this year. Like, the Penguins have to overcome adversity with the Blue Jackets tonight and win that series if they expect to call themselves a serious contender. And even if they do that, they're going to have trouble against the Philadelphia Flyers. And I think the Flyers would beat the Penguins because there's more depth on the Flyers this year. The Penguins teams that won championships had depth at center. They had Crosby, Malkin, Stahl, line 4 guy. Flyers have depth at center too this year. They've got Vincent Lecavalier, Sean Couturier, Claude Giroux. They got all these guys, and they're that team this year. I know Penguins fans hate the Flyers to death. Like, you want to stone somebody every time you hear the word Flyers. You want to stone them with a Permane Brothers sandwich. But it's like, they're the Flyers this year. Like, they're the better team this year. And I just think it's going to be the Bruins, the Flyers, and those are the 2 teams in the East. And it's going to be somebody in the Western Conference. I don't know who, but I don't think it's going to be Chicago or St. Louis. It could be Anaheim, but I still feel like it's anybody's guess because 5 of the top 8 teams in penalty killing during the regular season were the Bruins, the Canadiens, the Penguins, the New York Rangers, and the Philadelphia Flyers. And a team that finishes in the top 8 in penalty killing usually wins the Stanley Cup. And the Bruins, they're not just the top 8 penalty killing unit team. They have the goaltending, they have the offense, they're that complete team, and I still think they're the favorite to win the Cup. And if I'm wrong, I'm glad I'm wrong, because I said the exact same thing about the Vancouver Canucks a few years ago when they had Roberto Luongo, and they looked like that team until Luongo collapsed in the Stanley Cup Finals, and he never recovered from that. He never recovered from that moment after that meltdown, after Tim Thomas played with such courage and inspiration and gave the Bruins that momentum. And Tim Thomas is a good backup in Dallas, but Kari Leighton is still the man. And Goligoski, those guys are making stuff happen. The Avalanche, are playing tonight. That's Game 5. And the Wild have done a good job the last 2 games because the Minnesota Wild, they lost the first 2 games, but they won the last 2 at home, just like Dallas did. They lost the first 2 to the Anaheim Ducks, but they won the last 2 at home. And now it's like, okay, this Western Conference is more exciting. The winner of the Stanley Cup probably will come out of the Eastern Conference, but it's like I like the fact that these Western Conference teams are doing everything in their power to force a Game 7. And the Sharks are probably going to take care of the Kings tonight, as Cal Pope predicted, because it's Game 5, it's in San Jose, and they've just been the more dominant overall team in the series because LA's defensive penalty killings had to rely on Doughty all year, and the Sharks, they're playing as a team. They've got the depth at center just like the Kings, and I think Niemi wants to defeat Jonathan Quick and get that playoff victory over him. But it's going to be fun, and I definitely think that the upcoming games are going to say a lot about what happens in the Stanley Cup playoffs moving forward over the next few days. But the Bruins, I'll have them beating the Canadiens because of the layover, because they're the more complete team, and I still think the Bruins are the pick to win the Stanley Cup.